Hello, everyone. Today I'm looking at God of War, aka God of War 4. I feel that the large community might be familiar with this game, but not the original games. Or I think this is also called God of War 2018. But yeah, this game has been a very cool adaptation of the old series, and honestly, I'm very much all for it. I would say almost prefer this gameplay to the original one. This one is obviously a lot more cinematic, a lot more character building, and things like that. And of course, Kratos has basically been exiled himself from the Greek mythos and now taking on the Nordic mythos. And I think it's really great and very smart how, similar to the original series, they're not bringing out the big gods first. They're bringing out like the smaller gods like... oh god, I forgot his name. But the main guy that you fight in this one, the scrawny guy who looks like Kratos could beat to a pulp and is actually super strong. I thought that was really cool. And you have this long, prolonged fight that just kind of stretches out. Again, I also like how this game opens how, instead of Kratos' face, you have Kratos in the forest, and then you just do the quick time action to basically chop down the tree as a kind of a preview of things to come. I love the guy with the severed head. I forget his name. Some of these names are really hard to remember. And how he's like a very good comic relief, So the characterization in this game is much, much better and much more emotional. And so what the main premise of this game is somehow after the events of God of War 3, where Kratos seemingly like killed himself, he is now living somewhere, Scandinavia, I guess, or somewhere up north. And he has a son, and his wife has essentially died from some mysterious thing. We're never really told why she died or how she died, but she just is dead. And so basically the whole story is that they have to scatter her ashes at the highest mountain in the land, basically. And the amount of times you almost get there or get sidetracked, or there's actually a taller mountain that you actually have to go to, is kind of ridiculous and a little bit silly, but yeah, that's kind of what you have to do. There are also other aspects in this game where they take Norse mythology really seriously, I guess, in a sense, where you're able to use the light tree essentially to warp to the different realms of the 9 realms of the Norse mythos, from Midgard to the Netherworld, and all the other different dimensions. And the way Kratos actually does it is by gripping and shifting this gigantic sort of wheel platform and basically forcing it to teleport to the different places. There's definitely a lot of cinematic cutscenes at the beginning of the game, but once the game actually starts, you kind of are into a good series of, combat things. There are a couple of side quests also for you to do in this kind of more of a hub world than an open world, where you can fight the 7 or 8 Valkyries and 3 dragons as these optional fights in the game. And when you do them, you get special gear and stuff like that. Speaking of that, this is the first game to introduce different gear as an actual thing, for a God of War game. So Kratos can actually equip different armor and craft different armor. There are the 2 blacksmiths, these 2 little blue dwarves, who are again very funny. I find that the difference between Kratos's kind of very matter of fact, killer, man of short words personality is contrasted by these quirky other characters who kind of try to help him on the way or hinder him. What's really interesting, though, is his relationship with his son Atreus, of course, because a lot of the times, he'll reprimand Atreus too harshly, and then Atreus will be very negative in his disposition. And, it's really interesting to see Kratos to evolve as this father figure. I mean, it's just such an interesting evolution of his character, and trying to keep a balance between doing the right thing and, his main thing is he wants to push the boy to get ready and get strong and prepare for the fight that's coming, but at the same time also to not push him too hard. It's just so that he can survive. Of course, what they tend to do, because They are descendants of gods, including Atreus. They can fall basically off mountaintops and get hit with, these ridiculous attacks and still kind of be okay. Again, the set pieces in this game are very cool. You'll have giant monsters breaking up the ice below you and shifting the camera and all this other stuff. The actual gameplay for Kratos Easy now no longer has his Blades of Chaos, but actually halfway through the game you can actually buy them as an optional weapon, and then you can have them back. But his main weapon in this one is kind of a Nordic axe, which basically he can throw and it'll return to him. There's a bunch of other very different equipable special effects you can do. These things include making a blast from his axe, or like a frostbite attack or something like that, or the axe will, go between all the enemies and return like a boomerang. Kratos also has some old weapons like a shield from the first game that allows him to block, that has a Greek design on it, and he can also use his fists in certain situations and has special fist attacks. And there's actually a whole different tree of different skills you can unlock and also upgrade to like almost 4 levels. So this game has a little bit more of RPG elements in it, where you can upgrade a lot of Kratos' health and attack and a lot of different stuff that just wouldn't be the case in the first few games. You basically had your points, which you got from killing enemies or opening chests, but now there's a lot of different things that you can do vis-a-vis upgrades in this game. Again, it's interesting. In the previous games, you'd be around civilization and other people, but here it's very much focused on the characters. Also, a big difference is you're no longer in kind of a brawler style camera. You're now over the shoulder exploration kind of thing. And again, that kind of more intimate camera intonates a more intimate storytelling and a personal story and a relationship between these two characters. Near the end of the game, you basically also find a prophecy, which kind of lays the foundation for the next game in the series, where basically there is, I don't want to basically reveal that Atreus' real name is one of the names of the other Nordic gods, and what is revealed as a prophecy that essentially one of them or both of them will die or have to be sacrificed. And so that kind of has the foundation for the next, kind of installment. And it's an interesting twist that you would not expect. But again, I really enjoy the fact that they don't introduce Thor and Odin yet in this game. They're just kind of really building out the lore and having the lesser gods kind of interact with Kratos and Atreus. Who he calls Boy. I think a lot of people just refer to this game as God of Boy because that's all he says. They also depict, I believe, Freya in this game, and she's kind of like this, almost like a witch in the woods kind of style, which is not actually very typical of that god. And so she basically is able to, provide assistance to Kratos and the boy through medicinal medicines and healing and other things like that. And so basically what's also very different is instead of this being a completely linear kind of closed off area kind of game, there are multiple different paths to take. Like I said, it was more of a hub world than an open world. So, I really like that, because now we don't have a lot of empty, open, useless space, but everything is very poignant. Where certain enemies are, where certain encounters happen, where certain items are to be found, and you get little stories where you can go off the beaten path and find stories about dwarf kings and other kinds of ancient civilizations and races that have befallen awful, terrible times, or whatever happened to them. Of course, in one of the areas you find the elves, and the race of elves some are hostile, some are friendly to you. But the elves in this game are very interesting how they depict them. They're not really like the elves of classical mythology. They look more like an insectoid race and less human. It's a really interesting creative decision that they went with that one. Again, Kratos will be fighting all of the mythological creatures, but this time from northern mythology. So Draugr, ogres, trolls, and the like. I think one thing I maybe could complain about this game is the fact that there's quite a few areas where you have to like lug these crystals around, especially in the Elf Kingdom, and they act as a source of light, but also as this little, how do I even say it? As this power source, and you have to carry it through these areas, and you have conversation, but you know, the amount of times you have to stop what you're doing, pick up this giant crystal, and then go to, you know, the next area and wait for, you know, the dialogue for the pick up the crystal, move the crystal. It gets kind of annoying. Another cool thing is that while you're exploring the world, you can find these chests that have hidden runes on them. And so basically in the environment, you'll have bells or different kinds of runes that you'll need to destroy in order to unlock the chest, or some of them will just be kind of hidden behind cliffs and other areas you can platform to. I have to admit, it's very addicting to kind of loot and, you know, get all the kinds of different things you can get from these chests. You know, some of them might be blueprints for better armor or armor pieces themselves or certain upgrades you can use. The main currency in this game is hack silver, and so you will pay the dwarves to essentially give you special items or, you know, again, upgrade your armor and other things like that. Atreus also helps you during battles. He will use his bow and arrow to attack certain enemies, and of course throughout the game you get a certain upgrade where there are electric and shock arrows that can only destroy certain things like red crystal, and you may basically, you know, discover other areas. While you can't go to all the 9 different dimensions and kingdoms in this game, you can go to the main ones that you need to go to. And I think there's actually DLC that allows you to go to new ones, like Helfheim or something. But one of the places you go to is Niflheim. So besides the elf land, you also go to essentially the land of the dead, which is not uncommon to Kratos as all for anyone who's played the previous games. And they kind of have these, you know, kind of green aesthetic and this whole world which has been drowned in despair and sorrow and the lost souls of the damned. Anyway, the sound effects of this game are really impressive. The sound design, the weight of Kratos whenever he even picks up an item. Sometimes, you know, if it's a health or whatever, he'll have to kick it to destroy it, to absorb its energy. And so in this game, it just feels like everything Kratos does is super physical, and he's really just, you know, able to just tear things up really, really badly. And you just feel through the sound design and the, I guess, controller vibration just how much damage Kratos is doing. This is definitely my favorite God of War game so far, which is something I don't usually say. Usually newer doesn't equal better, but I think in this case, it's just better in terms of combat, in terms of story, in terms of characters. It's a lot more interesting. It's a huge improvement. I had a lot more fun than I thought I would playing it. I think the one thing I did come into effect was the Valkyrie fights. I found those to be incredibly difficult. Like, those actually were a legitimate challenge where it took me at least a dozen tries just to get one of them. Because, you know, they will fight in a certain way, and they'll have different attack patterns, and you have to, of course, memorize the attack patterns and know which attacks to use. And basically, I was using every tool that I had in my toolbox. It was like every move that allowed me to have iframes or to basically do a long range attack. I basically had it down to exactly what I needed to do. And, you know, there was kind of very little room for error. And I actually have not beaten all the Valkyries. I got about half of them, but I think if I go back and maybe play this game a little more, I might go get the rest. But yeah, they are definitely a major challenge. So this game by no means is easy at all. There are a few puzzles to solve throughout the environment, but nothing really major. Again, the story, the characters, I think, you know, the world serpent, that kind of, you know, ability to have these giant, you know, large scale, you know, encounters and conversations. You really feel the scope and the energy in it, again through the echoing of the sound design and the world and everything. It feels like you are making huge effects on this world, which seems to be mostly half mythological, half real essentially. And by the end of the game, you'll get very skilled at combating enemies and using your special powers and basically cycling between them in order to take on really tough and really satisfying challenges, which I'm really glad to see. So the game's not dumbed down at all. It's if anything, it's better. And I love the aesthetic. I love the setting. I love the characterization. This is a really good modern game, and I'm so glad that it even exists, and that I could never see God of War becoming something that I actually really, really liked, but this is the game that really did it for me. But anyway, guys, with all that being said, I will see you guys later. Bye.